Welcome to the Better Business, Better Life podcast. Terry DuPont is the founder of DuPont Advisory Group, a group dedicated to providing comprehensive services to successful business owners, medical, and other professionals. Terry has top-of-the-table status in the prestigious International $1 Million Roundtable, placing him among the top 0.1% of all professional financial advisors in the world. Terry's philosophy is, I've learned that I grow and prosper more by focusing on the success of others, rather than fretting over my own. Terry is a certified financial professional with the Institute of Financial Wellness, an advisor for the Power of Zero Taxes in Retirement, chartered retirement plans specialist, certified wealth preservation planner, and certified philanthropic developer. On the podcast, Terry brings together experts in their field who have succeeded in building their business to share their secrets with you. And now, here's your host, Terry DuPont.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Better Business, Better Life, Building on Your Success. I'm Terry DuPont, your host. And this week, ladies and gentlemen, we're honored to have Sherry Borshoff. She's an enrolled agent with the Internal Revenue Service, and she does accounting work and tax resolution work, tax planning work in Indianapolis, Indiana. That's correct, is it not, Sherry?
I'm in Carmel, but yeah,
Okay.
the central
Carmel,
Indiana
okay.
area is my
Okay.
is my area.
Yeah, so welcome to the show. We're glad you accepted the invitation to be on, and again, thank you very much. So
Glad to be here. Thanks.
yeah. Well, Sherry, can you tell us and the audience a little more about you and how you started your career?
My goodness. Well, first and foremost about me, I am a wife and a mother of two grown daughters, and my husband and I have a couple of rescue dogs that are getting up there in years. So on that personal side, we're very happy and blessed. And between the two of us, we run several businesses, not the least of which, to me anyway, is the accounting and tax firm. And we do what you said, tax resolution as well as tax planning. We offer bookkeeping and payroll services to small businesses. I do a good amount of small business consulting in that respect, but tax planning is very key. And so I started my firm in 2011. I had a job as a controller for an electrical contracting firm. Mm-hmm. So not to go like all the way back to the beginning of time, but the decision to start this firm was made because I was just seeing that there were a lot of folks out there who needed my skill set, but they couldn't afford to hire a full-time controller. Mm-hmm. For their company. And then it kind of morphed into all of this other stuff that I'm doing now. So
are you also a part-time or virtual or part-time CFO for these businesses, so to speak?
I kind of sort of, I mean, I kind of shy away from saying that I'm a CFO because frankly, that's putting onus on, helping them run their business. But I do help them with their cash flow. Okay. And, figure out ways. Usually if there's a cash flow problem, frankly, you're either in too much debt, you've got bills you're paying that you shouldn't be paying, or somebody's stealing from you, right. Unfortunately. So I help my small business owners kind of figure out what's going on and how to mitigate that and manage their cash flow. My history of work goes back to, I do have a certificate from IUPUI in paralegal science. Mm-hmm. So I worked as a paralegal for a tax firm. And I really loved that, but kids and stability and all that stuff. So
Sure.
I went on to finish my accounting degree, and then I got a job for a while with a CPA firm, and that was too much time spent in the office at the time when you have young kids. It was an ultimatum. You can either continue that job or you can get a job that's 9 to 5. So I went ahead and got a 9 to 5 job as a controller for a multi-unit restaurant chain. And then I was recruited by the electrical contracting firm. So that's kind of like a background in a nutshell of how I came along. I've been an accountant for freaking ever. And I'm kind of I'm not kind of, I am a tax geek. So, I'm always about the learning and understanding, and the government changes the rules, a lot. So during the COVID year, they changed the rules in the middle of tax season.
Yeah.
So yes, I do tax preparation too, but that was the challenging year. I was like, okay, we already filed all these returns for people. Now you change the rules. So what do we do?
What do you think is the biggest challenge you've faced so far?
Well, in my business, just like in every other business, I think the biggest challenge that I have is managing cash flow. And you could just kind of have to push through it sometimes. But yeah, as a small business owner, hey, I completely understand, the Friday night, well, that client hasn't paid me yet, or haven't gotten that check from that project yet. And how am I going to make payroll on
Sure.
Monday or on Friday, next Friday, So I used to have a boss back in the day, seemed like another lifetime, and he would always say, cash is king, cash is king. That was like his motto. And I was like, I didn't really get it at the time because, I was young and dumb. But now I get it. It's like cash flow is the key ingredient to being able to keep the doors open and the lights on, so to speak.
Okay.
So managing that is, it took me a long time too to get my head around. I have to ask for the money sometimes, and I'm working in my own business more towards like those contractual client services packages where you pay me a monthly fee and you get all these services for
Sure.
that monthly fee. And sometimes there's a little bit of sticker shock that comes along with the services that are necessary for your business. But, I think spreading those out for a lot of people, like into one monthly fee, is a lot more helpful than here's your $2,500 bill at the end of the year for doing your tax returns or for whatever advice I've given, or so yeah, and that is, I think, a lot of times a deterrent to a new client signing an engagement agreement. They're just like really afraid of, well, what's it going to cost? And so I view myself, I don't want to get too preachy or anything, but I view myself as a servant to people more than anything. Of course, I have to charge for my services because, I got bills to pay too. I got people on my payroll, they expect to be paid.
Right.
But I really try to work with my clients to make it so that the money for the services isn't hindering them from getting the services that they need.
Gotcha.
So.
Could you describe a scenario where your expertise in consulting might have significantly impacted business growth?
Well, without disclosing too much, I came into a client who was a roofing contractor, and they also had several properties that they managed, that they rented out to folks who, you know, he kind of viewed it as helping people get into housing.
Mm-hmm.
People who otherwise wouldn't be able to go to a bank and get their get a house, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So I met him originally I met him at a networking event, a trade show for real estate investors. And I had the booth next to his. So the background there is he starts asking me all of these questions. Turns out he had a 401k audit.
Mm-hmm.
Because whoever wrote the 401k for his business didn't help him manage it. And now he was in trouble.
Gotcha.
And so I came alongside him. I helped him get his QuickBooks and everything all situated. Because he's an old school guy. He likes pen and paper. He was keeping his, literally the green ledger paper. He was keeping his books that way. And paper is volatile because it can be destroyed and it can fade and it can, so many things. So I'm still working with him on a couple of things, mainly digitizing the receipts and stuff for his business. But we've got him into QuickBooks, and we've got him but to make a long story short, this audit from the 401k opened up a whole nother can of worms into the IRS Small Business Division. Came and audited like a few years of his business, because that's how the government works. They like one gets their hooks into you, and then all the others, like, they come along. So he was ultimately going to owe $4.5 million in taxes to the IRS. And it may or may not sound great to people, but I did do an offer in compromise for him. It took a long time to get it all worked out, but we settled on that for $1.15 million.
Okay.
And I think that was probably one of my biggest success stories in making sure that his business could stay open, that he didn't have to liquidate all of his business assets, and that, and because that's not a win-win for anybody. If they come along and they say, you've got all of these assets, and I had one guy that I argued vehemently with at the IRS over this, they are rental properties, they are business assets, making him sell all of those business assets to pay a tax debt is insanity, because then he's not going to owe any more taxes on that income, so to speak. So, what is in your best interest? Not only what's in the taxpayer's best interest, but what's the smartest move here, dude? So that's something that I like about my job, is arguing with those guys to say, this is I'm on the taxpayer's side all the way. But at the same time, it's like, you have to have some common sense. If you shut this guy's business down, he's
Right.
not going to owe any more taxes on that income because he's not operating anymore. So,
Yeah. Okay.
and I've helped some other businesses, with cash flow issues and things like that. And strangely enough, most of the doctors that have engaged services, they come to me with tax problems already in hand, So we get those straightened out, and we get their books all on track. And I would say that is something that I really enjoy too, is having that doctor view me as a sounding board for business decisions that they might have to make, cash flow decisions that they might have to make. And I guess in that respect, I am kind of a outsourced CFO. It's just I come at everything from a what's it going to be on a tax perspective? What's that going to look like from a tax perspective? Not only that, but can you afford this? So,
since you bring that up, what steps do you take to ensure that a business owner or business owners are prepared to handle higher taxes and fees and preventing any unforeseen financial burdens?
that's just a lot of communication and counseling. And like I said before, I encourage my clients to call me, text me, email me, ask me questions. Can't always make them do what I suggest, but a lot of times they're making a decision from an emotional standpoint, and they really do need to have a sounding board. And I don't want the cost of having that sounding board, because I have colleagues out there who will charge you $250 for a 30-minute phone call, or something like that. And to me is like, I really want to eliminate that obstacle from the equation. And I'm not saying that I don't charge for my services, but I am saying that I like to work with my clients in a way that they feel comfortable to communicate what's going on with them, what's happening in their business. Had a car care clinic operator who he was actually one of my first clients, and he opened his car care clinic, and he kept saying, I'm making enough in revenue. I don't understand why I never have any money in the bank. And so that was one of those cash flow things that we really kind of got looking into. We looked into how the POS and the service writer stuff was working. And that wasn't unfortunate. We found out the service writer was pocketing all the cash sales. So it's important to reach out. It may feel embarrassing to reach out and say, I'm having this tax problem, or I'm having this problem in my business, or I don't know. It's just communication is the biggest thing.
Sure.
That I can't stress enough is talk to your financial advisor, talk to your attorney, talk to your accountant, talk to your banker. You never know where that brilliant idea is going to come from that's just going to save the day. So
if you let's put it that, what is something that you know now that you wish you knew when you started?
When I started my business, frankly, how difficult it was going to be sometimes. I came into my business knowing a lot more than most small business owners know about how a business needs to run. Obviously, I'd ran businesses for other people, and so I knew that tax obligations are part of owning a small business going in. The cash flow thing was, again, a big eye opener to me. Of course, I was used to a 6-figure regular salary paycheck there for several years. And then all of a sudden, here I am, and my husband, who's a health insurance agent, he's been self-employed since before we got married.
Gotcha.
So he was like, you're going to have to start thinking about money in a whole different way. And boy, is that true.
Sure.
You know, you really have to start thinking about money and finances in more of a creative way, really. I mean, you have to, because you still have to pay yourself first. You still have to maintain your investments and your retirement plans and all of those things, as well as, you know, as you grow, pay employees so that you can continue to grow. And I look at it sometimes, I switched out working for one company to working for about 400 companies, you know, and that gets difficult.
Sure. Sure.
But I do love what I do. So, you know, it's and there are certain aspects of that I love more than others.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I get you.
but running a business is hard. It's not the fairy tale, oh, you start a business, you're a CEO of a business, and you're a billionaire. I wish, you know, I know we all wish that was actually the truth, but most of us out there are small business owners. I would say small to medium business owners that we struggle every day with. Here's the to-do list I've got to do. I've got to do certain things for all of these different people. You know, whatever business you're in, it's the same. You have to cater to your clients. You just switched out having one boss for having however many clients you have.
Right.
That's how many bosses you got now. And people who don't understand what it is to be a small to medium business owner don't understand that. It's not like I get to make, I mean, I can control my schedule a lot more than most people, but I don't always get to make my own schedule.
Right.
I mean, because especially in my career path is very deadline driven.
Sure.
You know, if I don't make that deadline, I could blow everything out of proportion. So,
well, speaking of that, how does Borshoff Consulting stay updated with the constantly evolving tax laws and regulations in order to best serve your clients?
well, I have a lot of continuing education that I invest in, and I read every day. You know, I subscribe to the IRS bulletins that come out literally 3 times a day, some days, you know. So the IRS updates are the key component in keeping up with the federal government and what's going on and what the resolutions and proclamations and bulletins are. In the state of Indiana puts out a newsletter that I subscribe to also. And then I am the education chair for my local Society of Enrolled Agents.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
So I do also make sure that my colleagues, state of Indiana is actually going to do a webinar for myself and my colleagues in January to go over the state laws, because a lot of times the state will couple with the federal laws and things that, I mean, that's easy, but the state can do what they call decouple from a federal law. So sometimes that's tougher. You know, I go back to the COVID year where, due to COVID, the federal government said unemployment tax, you know, if you were paid unemployment while you were off for the COVID disaster thing, that unemployment wouldn't be taxed as income. The state decoupled from that. So even though you didn't have to pay income tax to the federal government, you still had to pay income tax to your state, because most states decoupled from that.
Do you have a lot of fun with the and not all of them, but many of the laws and regulations are very ambiguous that I have found. And you have fun wading through all that?
So I don't know if I call it fun, but I would
Just trying to
call
be
it
facetious.
interesting. It does kind of come down to determination and the arguments that you can make to support where you're coming from in that determination. And I use that a lot when it comes to the tax resolution side of my business is, well, this can be interpreted one of two ways. And this is how my client doesn't fit that other way that you're trying to interpret it as, you know. So yes, it comes in handy. And I do subscribe to some tax research services and some forums where I bounce ideas off of other tax professionals,
Right.
you know, because you never know who's had a case like this before.
Exactly.
When you're dealing with like the case I mentioned before, the multi-million-dollar case, I mean, it's like, okay, how do I make this argument and make it stick? And I mean, one of my colleagues just said, it's just extra zeros. Just make the argument, you know? The argument fits.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes just like, you know, if a lawyer goes to court, it's all in the judge you pull.
Sure.
That you've got to argue your case against, and sometimes it's all about the agent that you're trying to deal with, and if they are like just strictly by the book and they're not willing to negotiate, and sometimes you got to go over their head, you know. You hate to do that because, well, I sometimes hate to do that because it feels disrespectful to the person that I'm trying to deal with. But if I'm not getting anywhere with you, I want to talk to your supervisor.
Yeah, you're not trying to get a job, you're representing your client.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So
is there something that that you try or typically want to share with each and every client that you have?
Every client that I have, I want to really drive home the communication is key, and record keeping is key to your success here. You know, there's like the old saying, garbage in, garbage out.
Right.
If I don't have all of the information, I can't do my job.
Yep, I agree.
If you are not forthcoming with me, I can't do my job. You know, I can do a tax planner for you based on what I've got, but if you didn't communicate that you got a 50% raise this year, it's not that's not going to make any it's not going to do you any good.
Right.
So you have to communicate with me about things, and I always end every email with, as you know, quote, as always, any questions or concerns, feel free to contact me, you know. And I don't, it's not just a flippant thing that I put at the end of every communication. It is true and factual that I want you to communicate with me with, I mean, even if you don't think it's tax related,
You never know.
you don't know unless you ask. So,
right.
Yeah.
So tell me, how do you, Sherry, how do you define success?
Security, more than anything, being secure in knowing that you're on the right path, that you will succeed. Having that security, that respect, that communication with the people in your orbit, in your life, with your clients, with your colleagues. That to me is success. that more than anything.
Is there anything else that you wish to share that we haven't talked about yet?
Oh, we'd be on here forever. Every time I'm asked to give a speech on accounting and stuff, I'm like, well, what do you want me to talk about? Because there's a lot, there's a lot of stuff.
Is there anything that comes to your mind right off the bat?
I mean, if I'm talking to small and medium business owners, people who are trying to make a go of it and secure their financial and their family's future, get a good lawyer, get a good financial planner, get a good accountant, and get with people who view that they are part of that team, that the accountant, the lawyer, and the financial planner, we could all get on a phone call together, like Zoom or something. And so build your team around you. Have a good team that is invested in your success. Because I can tell you from my standpoint, I view my clients' success as my own success. Because if they didn't continue to grow and thrive, I really haven't done much for them then.
When you see them do that, it brings you satisfaction.
It does. It does. Brings great satisfaction and pride in knowing that, I'm helping someone else build their dream. As I think that maybe that's the definition. That's more from helping others build their dreams than helping yourself. Because I think the helping yourself build your dream comes as a byproduct of serving others more than anything out there, So,
I've only got a couple questions left. With your success thus far in your own business, what do you see as your biggest problem going forward?
handling growth.
I'm sorry?
Handling the growth.
Okay.
At some point, I already know I'm going to have to hire another professional, a licensed like myself. And to me, that's scary because it's kind of like handing over your baby to a caregiver. So finding someone like myself, and then of course, the salary that I will have to pay that person.
Right.
So handling the growth is my biggest concern, and I want to grow. But I have to do it in a way. I mean, like, I'm not going to wake up tomorrow and be Crow Chiswick or something, or even H&R Block, which is probably one of the boxed,
I can't imagine why you'd
big box stores. What I tell people, I hate to tell people that H&R Block is bad because it feels like bashing the competition. But one of the things is you're not always sure you've got a licensed professional doing your taxes when you go to a box store like that to get them done. I mean, they have their place, but not if you're in a small business. I think if you're in a small business, you really need that team behind you. You really should consider all of and again, the cost is the biggest concern that I see from most of the small business owners or entrepreneurial minds out there. And try to make it so that it's not as big a factor from what I do. But you have to communicate that to your professionals. And if they're like me, they're going to try to work with you because they don't want the cost to be a deterrent to getting the help that you need,
I know that all of your contact information is at the bottom of the screen, but would you like to share with our audience where they can go, what they can do to learn more about you?
Yeah, I have a LinkedIn page, and so you can learn about some of the things that I've done there. And my website's pretty informative about what my background is and what my philosophies are. I network constantly, so uh, so I'm always happy to meet new and interesting people and bounce ideas off. Um, I don't know if you've got my phone number and my email address there, just reach out to me. I'm always happy to, even if you don't ultimately become a client, and I've said this before, if you have a concern that's eating at you and you just need a quick 15-minute sounding board, or somebody to say, well, hey, you might consider asking this once you get a hold of them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy to do that. I mean, my husband, who's a consummate salesman, he's like, it's like you're spilling all your candy in the hallway. That's an old Sandler reference.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't view it that way. I view that goodwill, if you give people goodwill will return to you.
Like paying it forward, right?
Exactly. So.
Well, that's awesome, Sherry. And I want to thank you for being on the show and accepting the invitation. It's been a great conversation.
Pleasure.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's the wrap for today's show. Again, this is Better Business, Better Life, building on your success. Again, I'm your Terry DuPont, your host. Come back next week to see next week's episode. We'd love to have you. And do remember, the best way to predict the future is to create it. See you next week.
This has been the Better Business, Better Life, Building on Your Success podcast. If you have questions about creating tax-free wealth and income, forward-looking tax mitigation, strategic risk mitigation, wealth preservation and legacy planning, and advanced financial management, go to DuPontAdvisory.com or email terry@DuPontAdvisory.com.
49 faces looked to him in triumph. Over the last 12 months, they had each taken turns and promoted his business for a week at a time, driving over $987,342 in revenue. What if you had a network of 50 centers of influence who promoted your business every week for a year? Grab your copy of the #1 Amazon best-selling book, The Ultimate Guide to Growing Your Business with a Podcast, at 33% off the Amazon price by going to ultimatepodcastbook.com. Again, that website for 33% off the Amazon price is ultimatepodcastbook.com.